Hi everybody, I'm Kate Foggo, this is Julie Hurt, and we are making light to humans being. So I don't know if you've missed us. Julie's been moving house, and she's now in her new house. So we're starting up again. And this week we'll be talking about languishing, which is something that's come up a few times in the last few days for me, and the different things that it means to us, and just all about that. And you'll see where it goes. So welcome.
Hi, Kate.
Hello, and can we say first of all, Julie, welcome to your new home.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing your stuff get organised behind you. I can't see your books yet. I can't see your pictures. I can't see your YouTube stuff. So I'm sure that's all to come.
It is, yes, the evolution of my space. Yes, it'll be something. It'll be like a side story.
Yeah. Mine will be changing as well, because actually behind the stone wall is I've now put cupboards up because I'm trying to rearrange my space to completely separate all the guest house stuff.
Okay.
So I'm going to I've bought some distressed wood wallpaper to put on the back of the cupboards, see if that works. Gary doesn't think it will work, but I'll make it work. Even if I have to sew it on, I'll make it work. It'll be fine. So welcome to your new home, Julie.
Thank you.
And welcome back to both of us.
Yeah. Welcome
It's
back.
been 20 days, 21 days, 3 weeks actually.
Yeah.
So something's a lot of stuff's been coming up, but then this word came up again, languishing.
It sounds delicious to me.
Well, I thought it was all right, but the definition, I forget the official definition. So I'm back on Bright Line Eating, happily, I should say, and I actually signed up for the annual thing. I mean, I'm not big on support. I don't really need support. Once I get my head around something, that's it. I just get on with it. But I did fail spectacularly a few months ago. So I figured, maybe that's the point of support, is that when you do fail spectacularly, you've got someone to help you up, instead of just, as they put it, going deeper and deeper into the ditch, which is what happened. Because it's a philosophy like hang on, my hairs, they call it like 12-step program. It's based on that philosophy anyway. It's addiction, although I don't like that phrase, but it works. And Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson, who does all the psychology behind addiction and food and all these things, she does a weekly vlog, that's what she calls it. And I listened to it the other day because I sort of caught up, because I watched all the videos enough just to get me started, enough to sort of bolster me up. And then I started, and I've actually been on it over 2 weeks and realized I haven't actually listened to any of the videos I'm supposed to have listened to as part of the module, because this is a sort of structured 10-week course. And I haven't watched any of it, so I sort of caught up. And she was talking about languishing. So apparently she said that she was just on social media somewhere, and this thing popped up saying the most read articles of 2021. So this was in the New York Times, and she was like, oh, it's quite interesting. So she looked at it, and the most read article was this article about languishing, which was, there is a name for how you're feeling. It's called languishing. I'm paraphrasing, but it's the feeling. So it's based on a premise that on the one hand you have flourishing, on the other hand you have depression, and there's obviously a huge scale within that, but that there are a lot of people, whether it's it makes sense with COVID as well, who are not thriving and wouldn't necessarily call themselves depressed, but they're not thriving at all. And that actually this is one of the more dangerous states to be than not thriving, because when you're actually in depression, usually there are signs and symptoms that people recognize that something's not right, whereas there's quite a scale of languishing, as he calls it, where you lose interest in things. And you can, I know that since COVID, I had friends that we didn't meet very often, but when we did meet, we always set another date, and if anyone called off that date, we would always, so we would always see each other. And I would although I don't see people very often, but when I do, I tend to stick to it. I make an effort, and I You know, if someone, I'm quite obedient, you know, once I have an appointment, that's it as far as I'm concerned. Unless something really serious came up, I wouldn't pull it out rather. Whereas now I'm quite happy to, because people do frequently and people break appointments and then you never get around. I don't know if you've found that, have you, since COVID? So just not seeing people. So I can go months and months and months not seeing people I really should or want to see. And I think nothing of making excuses not to go out anymore.
I don't know if I do it more than I did it before. I feel like before COVID, I would say yes to things I really didn't want to.
Yes.
And
Agreed.
then as I would get towards the appointment or towards the dinner or whatever it was, I would feel angry because now I know that's
Resentful.
a boundary being crossed. And then sometimes I would actually get sick. Sometimes, and then other times I'd be grumpy all day. And then at the end, you know, just beforehand, I'd call it off, like that type of thing. And then once COVID hit, I'm an introvert in that I get my energy from being by myself or with Lucas or with Brad and just at home. That's where I recharge. And so COVID to me was like, yay, I don't have to do that stuff. So I don't have to.
I agree. I agree with everything you've said there.
But what I did find though, is that I would make appointments then I started to use Zoom, and then I started to load my calendar with things that were virtual, like webinar, you know, just stuff that because I felt like I still had to be busy, especially once I lost my job, then I still felt like I had to be busy. But then then I realized what I was doing. And that was before we left Alaska. I was realizing what we were doing. And then slowly that time in the UP started to kind of shave that back a little bit. But yeah.
What's the UP?
The Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where we lived the last 6 months, right? May, June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, 6 months.
I would agree. And I think COVID's been a brilliant thing for a lot of people. I would say I was further along that trajectory than you, because I stopped saying, I just don't go to stuff and I think a lot of that was giving up drinking. That a lot of people don't want you around if you're not drinking, if the focus of their going out is drinking. They don't like having people along that don't drink. And also you become less tolerant. Like when I drank, I'd probably go along to a lot of things I really didn't care for because there was drink involved. So I would have gone along anyway, because drinking made everything tolerable. When you're not drinking, you're like, do you know what, I really have nothing in common with you people, and now that I don't really want to drink with you, why would I go? So I think I was already at a stage where I really don't do anything I don't want to do socially anyway. I would make excuses because I'm the same. I'd much rather be at home. But I mean, just like really good friends that maybe I don't see very often, but I would see, periodically. I have one group of friends that we do actually catch up monthly, and we have continued to do that. But I have other friends, ostensibly my best friends, Cara and Susie, and one or other would cry off close to the time because everything's so frigging complicated, or they're self-isolating or this, and then before you know it, another 4 or 5 months has gone by. Anyway, the point of this article was that a lot of people the quality of their life has degraded quite a lot in terms of joy and being able to do things that they enjoy. But it's not at a stage where you would necessarily notice. And the thing is, it then becomes your new normal. And I think that's what's happened to me. My new normal is, I mean, I do see people because I go swimming, but they're not. I do swim with a friend, and that's like an event. But the rest of the time, it's lovely to see people, but they're not people I would talk about my feelings with or get that sort of support. It's not like that. Anyway, so that was what this languishing was about. And then I heard the word again somewhere else. Where did I hear it? But it did just occur to me, because I was talking to Louise yesterday about fatigue, because I know I should exercise more and nothing takes my fancy. And I'm really trying at the moment with this downtime that I've got to just do what I want, but I still feel guilty because I'm watching TV instead of reading. I think we've had this discussion, but watching TV. I had a coaching session with Danielle, my final coaching session, group coaching session, where she said that actually watching TV for me is a way of managing my energy, because it's a way of switching off. So I'm not watching violent horror movies or anything like that. I'm watching RuPaul. I'm back on season 6. I worked my way through all 13 seasons, and 3 in the UK, and I'm back to but also like the Great Pottery Throwdown, which just fills me with so much enthusiasm, and Kirsty's Handmade Christmas, which is all crafts, and it's all very middle class Christmas decorations and stuff like that. But I just love all that. I used to sit and resent these people, like how can they give up their job and do crafts for a living? But I've got over that now, and now I just actually enjoy watching people do stuff like that, and watching how much joy it brings them. So I'm not watching anything that brings me down at all. It definitely lifts me up. But
can I ask you about 2 shows real quick?
Yeah.
Have you watched the glass blowing show that's on Netflix? I don't even know what it's called. When I was in physical therapy for my broken leg, we had to do water therapy, and they had a TV right there, and we would watch this glass blowing competition show. Beautiful stuff that would come out of it. So that's one thing to look for. I'll see if I can find it, and we'll put it in the show notes. I'll see if I can find it. The other thing, and this is what I'm realizing, have you ever watched Queer Eye for what used to be called Queer Eye?
Oh, it keeps popping up because of RuPaul, but I haven't. Is it good?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so the new season is out. Is it? God, what season is this? It must be.
That's all right. I'll have to watch it from the first season.
You have to start from the beginning. Okay, so there, just real quick, just so you know, there used to be Queer Eye for the Straight Guy with 5 other guys, right? And then they retired, different channel. They brought it back to Netflix. It's called Queer Eye now. They dropped for the Straight Guy because they help anybody that needs help. So they've done men, women, transgender.
It's fashion.
It's cooking. I think about the guys. It's cooking, fashion, grooming, coaching. There's life coaching. Who am I missing? Wait, I'm missing some. Oh, and interior design. So they take somebody and they redo a space. They redo them grooming wise and fashion wise, and then they show them how to cook something better or healthier or more in line. So because most people aren't taking care of themselves holistically, and then they also create a space for them.
I could do with that.
Okay, so the new season's out, and I will only allow myself to watch one every so often because I want it to extend, because these 5 guys in particular, when I watch them, my vibration raises. So when you talk about RuPaul, and I've been wanting to talk about Queer Eye, just how it raises the vibration, because they're in service for people and they're helping people, and they're also bringing the story of connectivity, that we're all connected, to the forefront. I love them. But anyway, we can talk about them more, but just put that on your radar. I
will do. Well, it has been popping up because I've watched everything I can find with sort of RuPaul, and I know there are drag races in other countries, and I found a couple of them, but I haven't found any others that either they're not on UK or I need some pirate TV server somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, I will look at that. But this is it. I think watching, do you know what's nice about these programs is there's so much on television. If it's not violence, it's just about how shit everything is, about how the world's gone to shit in a handbag, that how horrible people are to each other, how dangerous it is out there, how slovenly everyone is, how badly they drive, how terribly they treat their neighbors. It seems to be an obsession to sensationalize all of the, ice road truckers, for example. Did you ever watch that?
No.
Right, so you'll know that across Alaska there's some roads that they can only use in winter or whatever, and so it's just about how the trucking industry and how they go through that, and you get to know that it's fascinating. And okay, I get that it's dangerous, and they tell you it's dangerous, but it used to be really interesting to watch. Like, you'd be on the edge of your seat a little bit, but you're sort of confident in the idea that they're not going to film a massacre. They're not going to film something going up, that chances are that they're going to get there safely. But like, if you watch it now, it's all pressure, Jericho has to get across this lake by 5 p.m. because otherwise the ice is going to collapse and he's going to go out of business and the whole community will starve to, they've changed the whole tone of it. Whereas before there was always an undercurrent of danger and you were always on the side of the driver and, appreciating the risks. But now it's all about the deadlines as well as, the ice is going to crack, and if they don't get this load through, 600 people are going to starve to death and the business is going to go under, and Jason and his 5 children are going to starve to death. It's like everything's just got to be so urgent, sensational, all of this. So I love watching programs where it's like, people being nice. I mean, even with like the pottery one and the Kirsty's middle class Christmas, there is an element of competition, but it's supportive competition. It's just nice to see that.
Yeah, like the Great British Baking Competition show, which I also love that one too. They just seem really supportive of one another. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, I haven't watched that because too much cake on show, but that's not a good time for me to see cake. So I don't know where we were going with this, Julie.
Languish. And that Danielle had said that.
Oh yes, so she said this is a way of me managing my energy. This is actually something that's okay. And I think I've come to the conclusion that I've got to take the pressure off about building a business, because it will happen. It's like I don't doubt my skills anymore because I've got this client who thinks I'm marvelous, so I know I can do it. But this sort of building a business, just fills me with anxiety, not doing the work, but just even how am I going to timetable it against the shed? I can't predict the time, all of this. It then becomes a whole load of shit. And ironically, if I think now about, okay, just say I won the lottery and I get £1 million, would I close the shed? There's a bit of me that goes, no, I wouldn't, because I can't let go of it because we invested money in it. It has to pay its way before I can let it go. That may be a belief I can shift, but it's very real for me. So it's not just about the money. Well, it's all about the money, but it's not about needing to have an income in as much as I can't let go of the fact that it has to pay its way, that I invested that money, I made that choice, therefore I have to, so there's a lot we can work on there, obviously. But what I mean is, what ties me to keeping the shed open is not as simple as I need the money from it. There's a lot of personal investment in it. So and actually the irony being that when I think of the shed now, when I think of trying to build a business, now that I'm not doing the shed because it's shut, when I think of trying to build a business, it makes me anxious, and focusing on a shed actually calms me down because I know what it is. Isn't it funny how as soon as you get what you think you want, you're like, this isn't what it's about. Me not having to do the shed is not giving me the peace I thought it would.
Yeah.
Because there is still stuff I need to go through. So in a very long-winded way, I think I'm languishing for a reason. And I actually think that fatigue has just come into my attention. And fatigue to me is a word that goes with languishing as well, although maybe that I've long understood that my pain is all about long-term issues over, well, we're talking 25 years now, so it's not surprising it takes a lot to unravel that. But I actually think fatigue is a part of it. And I have never acknowledged that maybe I feel, I know there's no such thing as normal, but I've always just pushed through, always. I've never been allowed myself to think, my energy levels are perhaps not optimal, and maybe there's not something wrong with me, but maybe I don't have the energy that other people do, which is why I can't run a marathon, or it's why I can't be bothered to walk up the hill, because I just don't want to do exercise. I do my yoga, I did that dancing thing, but I have zero motivation. So looking for something to do is pointless because I don't want to. And I actually think that maybe there's fatigue in there that I don't credit myself with actually having an issue with, which is all part of my recovery. Does that make sense? Go, Julie.
So yeah, a couple points. One, there is the ongoing evolution away or evolution from, or evolution. Okay, we both were working people, meaning career corporate types of people, and there's still that letting go of all of that work, right? Which, so there's that. There's also this in that maybe journey, also looking to find what actually makes us happy, because when we find what actually brings us joy on a daily basis and really lights our light, that grows outwardly as a ripple effect as well, which then can bring abundance in other ways. So the shed could very much bring you joy. When you said it was complicated, it wasn't just about the money, and it wasn't just about maybe the business. Maybe there is an aspect of joy in there, which is why you also can't, maybe don't want to let it go. Who knows? Maybe not, could be. But then there's also, to me, this theme of disconnect, that when you were talking about COVID and this feeling of languishing, and how people are just kind of languishing. I feel like we're moving from this place collectively of living in fear, like all the TV shows you were mentioning, how they're all based on fear, but the ones that are resonating with us are based on love and of service and of caring and compassion. And that's really what's resonating with us right now. But to me, and particularly Western culture, but I have a feeling mostly the entire world, just based on the fact that we're so driven by money and we're so driven by materialism and consumerism, we have become so disconnected from our inner selves, from nature, from a mystic perspective, from the universe. And I think that's what we're all feeling, which is the fatigue as well, because when you don't have that connection to other human beings or to source or whatever it is, when you don't have that connection, we aren't designed to we're not designed to be disconnected. We're designed to be connected. So when we don't have that connection, it becomes overwhelming, which creates the fatigue, which can create the languishing. So I wonder if this languishing, which I actually at the beginning of this conversation feel it's delicious, because in that languish, that beginning to let go and really becoming quiet, you're actually becoming into a place where, in my opinion, when I languish, I think of it as laying on a couch watching a show.
I do. It's quite a nice word, but I'm going to look up the definition as you say that, because I'm pretty sure, because I was surprised at it.
Yeah, because I just think that the thing, and then I get the disharmony or the dissonance that's in the word languish. I just feel like we're in this phase collectively where we're trying to become reconnected. We're being forced to find new ways to connect. We're being forced to do things slower, maybe less. Like for me here in the States, or I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan now, the grocery store shelves, there are huge gaps in the products. And people are complaining about they can't get their specific type of
I do.
So, okay, so like, for example, there's a recipe that I would make for my mom and dad that calls for crescent rolls, which is like a croissant. It's processed. It comes in a tube. You unravel it. Then you create these cute little croissants. But they're out. I can't find them anywhere. So I went online and made my own. Little did I know how much sugar is in those bad boys. Now I know. Not gonna be eating those anyway. But it's interesting to me how everybody's complaining about the lack of, when the store itself is still, how many acres.
It's because we're not used to it, because it's the same here, although it's not little things like that. It's like you can't get bottled water for love nor money at the moment. And it's because of Brexit and transport issues, and because it's a low, but just stuff like that. And that, I guess I get irritated by that. And I think that's what
complaining.
Sorry?
What do you get irritated by, the complaining or the empty?
No, I get irritated that things aren't available, because we are so used to having stuff. And I don't think I would complain about not being able to get croissant mix, but I guess because we only eat what's the word, natural whole foods, if you like. So if I can't get something, I have to replace it with something. It's like if I can't get aubergine and I can't get courgettes, I'm then going, oh fuck, what am I going to eat? Like, that's 3 days of vegetables that I'd have to, is it going to be carrots all week then? That sort of thing. But I get that it's a very spoiled attitude. It is very spoiled. We are very spoiled. Now, when we were in, what was it called? Cuba. I mean, you couldn't buy anything.
Right.
People were delighted with anything. Even, if you gave them a bar of soap and they were shopping for food, they were delighted. And then there was somewhere else we stayed in Cadico, which is a tiny, tiny little village off Gran Canaria. Now, I can't remember if it's Granada or Grenada. It's the one that's in the West Indies anyway, as opposed to Spain. Minute shops there, they would literally have a shelf and there'd be like a bag of rice, tins of tomatoes, tin of pineapples, but like one tin of pineapple. It's like there's just we're so, and you just make do. We just ate rice and I think tuna fish, I think we ate, and tomato sauce.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite fun. I'm going to read you what Languish says though, because actually I think you and I are thinking of 1.3 archaic, assume a sentimentality tender or melancholy. I'll put my teeth in. Assume a sentimentally. I was going to say that's not a word. Sentimentally tender or melancholy expression or tone. But the number one meaning is to lose or lack vitality and grow weak, fail to make progress or to be successful, pine with love or grief. And then the second meaning is to be forced to remain in an unpleasant place or situation. So I think of languishing as the sort of like an opulent, luxuriating on the sofa type word, but actually it means fail to flourish. Which
So
isn't
here's the interesting thing to me in the definition and the immediate reaction, if you will, as to how we were probably raised. So when you read those words, you're like, well, you can't be whatever. I'll read it one more time. Let me get some of the words so I can.
Which one?
The very first definition, not the first one you read, but the very first that shows up.
Of person, animal, or plant to lose or lack vitality and grow weak.
Yeah, see,
to fail to make progress or to be successful.
That's it. The fail to make progress or be successful. We have it in our culture that we always have to make progress, and we always
you have to be growing, you have to be pushing, you have to be.
Yes. And that to me is what's happening right now, is we're understanding that success isn't X and progress isn't Y. It's there's other things that mean success and progress, but we have it in certain ways. Yeah.
When I was a project manager, one of my pet peeves is this pushing that people need to be better, more. So we had engineers, and then we'd have people that were doing the architecture or project managers or whatever. And the point is, everybody has a job to do. And I'd be like, and they would want people that are more dynamic, more this. And I'm like, you don't want everybody in the team to be the fucking leader, because not everybody can be the leader. You need to acknowledge there are some people that need to do the grunt work, whatever you want to call it. But these are skilled people. This is what they do. This is what they're good at. Stop pushing them to, if you had a room full of project managers and no engineers, you wouldn't get anything done. It's like, why can't you value the fact that they are doing a skilled job that is not, woo, look at me, I'm in marketing. Sorry, Julie. But, that's basically, it's like, well, we need you to be more dynamic. No, we don't. We need you to do the good job that you're doing now and be recognized for it, because that's how they get their kicks. Just because they're not all woo, 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 doesn't mean that they don't have extreme pride in their work. It's like they're always pushing people. We need people to make more decisions. You also need people to follow those fucking decisions.
And
because if everybody, because if everybody's got an opinion, nothing gets done.
Exactly.
But it's all this, and it's like, in case like this really annoyed me, because we went from HP, which was happy people, and it was a very in those days, this is a long time ago, very strong culture of people do the best job they can, give them the tools that they need, and everybody's trying to do a good job. And that sort of got eaten away through the years. But then it sort of became, well, the bar is always rising. Well, it can't.
Right.
That's just bullshit.
Yeah.
You think we're all just getting cleverer, like genetically? It's just bullshit. It's just an excuse not to pay people more money, because it's sort of like, oh, well, the bar's up here now and you're really, really good and we appreciate you, but you're here and we need you to be here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting angry.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I had a boss that would say we would accomplish a big project, I mean, multi-million-dollar project. And you would go and tell her and do the reporting and all the metrics and all the analyzation and all that stuff and go, ta-da. And she'd go, oh, that's nice. Now, what have you done for me lately? Like in the last 30 seconds that you were just talking, what have you done for me now? And it always for me, it took the legs out underneath me. It's like, but I just worked so hard and I'm effing tired now, right? And he said, ah, here you go. And now it's like not good enough. It's absolutely demoralizing. But I do wonder, now that we're talking about languishing, I do feel this sense of, or I guess I have this wish that as COVID continues and either keeps coming back with either a variant or a new hurdle is being given, whether it's like empty grocery stores or must wear masks or I don't know, whatever it may be, these constant things that keep coming back up, to me is just COVID alone. There's so many other symbols from the universe, but just COVID alone keeps coming back and going, missing the point. The languishing, when you realize you're not thriving, that's the moment when you can go still to see what it is you actually want and actually need. And with Thich Nhat Hanh's recent passing, there's several of did you not hear that Thich Nhat Hanh passed away?
I don't know who he is.
Oh, Buddhist monk, died last week at the age of 95. I would call him, well, clearly an elder. I would call him probably a level 10 soul, if we think of it in Ainsley MacLeod terms. Wise man, Buddhist monk, but practiced like, how do I want to say this? Practice like the universal plan of love and connectedness and all the things we talk about. He just happened to be Buddhist, but he could relate. He worked with Martin Luther King Jr. He worked with one of the popes didn't like him very well. If the current pope likes him, doesn't matter. Anyway, he just passed. But much of what he was talking about is going still. And
what's his name? Just so that.
Oh, Thich Nhat Hanh. Oh, I can put him in the show notes too.
Okay.
Yeah. So because he's Vietnamese, so it's a tricky spelling. It's not a normal, like not said they were normal. It's not a Western spelling, so sometimes it can get a little tough for us. But anyways, but in that stillness is what I've been reading. Many people that I follow have been honoring his life and his transition, and they keep coming back to this stillness. And in this stillness, so with COVID is causing us to be still. And for cultures that are not used to being still, constantly have to have progress and constantly success, this is extremely hard because we're deprogramming so much of what we think we're supposed to do, tied to fear, tied to money, instead of tied to love and tied to inner light and shining it outward. So I don't know. That's my thought with languish is I could see that little plant when you said not thriving. And I'm like, and in that moment, when a plant isn't thriving, I think of the mycelium network, and the fungi would be like, oh, here's what you need. And they'll start shooting it as long as you begin to say, where's what I need. Do you know what I mean?
But also what's interesting is actually under the of person, animal, or plant to lose or lack vitality, grow weak. The example I give, plants may appear to be languishing simply because they are dormant. And actually, and this is again what Danielle was saying to me, is when you've had a period of growth or a period of change or a period of whatever, you actually need time to assimilate, to rest, to go within, to integrate things, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I do understand we're talking at cross purposes to what this guy was writing about, because there is obviously, I think there's a lot of things that's happened during COVID that have just made people very isolated and stuff like that. But so there's sort of
Oh yeah,
two
no, I don't
sides, isn't
disagree
there?
with that. I just always think of it in terms of, yes, it's hard and it's bad. Where is the opportunity in it though too? That's because, yeah, I'm an optimist. Anyway.
Yes, me too. But even that, because like Gary was, I think last week, I think when he realised that he would have been going to the New York, and he didn't, he'd cancelled his thing again, and he's just getting really pissed off because he usually goes away 2 or 3 times a year, and he's not able to, and it's sort of like, when's this ever going to change? Is this ever going to get back to normal? Am I ever going to be able to travel again? And then he was actually quite down for a couple of days, and in a way I was sort of like, I'm not saying it's a good thing. Obviously, I don't wish him to be depressed, but Gary's the sort of person who he has had. I think he had an issue a long, long time ago with one of his jobs where they basically drove him into the ground, and I think he left, and he didn't have a breakdown, but he left the job and he was fine again immediately afterwards. So he has experienced that, but he hasn't ever experienced mental health issues in the terms of, I don't feel right and there is nothing I can do about it. Like it's nothing, there's nothing physical in my life that I can remove that's going to make this go away. So it was actually quite a shock for him, even if it was just for a couple of days. And I thought, well, you know what, that's not a bad thing in terms of him learning compassion, that you can't just snap out of it. That it's not just something that people do because they want to lie on the couch and eat crisps. There are times in your life where that happens, and it's not, there are things you can do to help, but there's still this huge attitude that you can just shake it up a bit and you'll be fine. I was really grateful actually when I had my breakdown that one guy who I used to work with, who I don't know, he found me. I don't know how he found me because I didn't think I was on the electoral roll, but he found me, drove to my house and presented me with a book and said, you need to read this. And it was a book about depression and that. And I was really grateful because actually what the book said is, don't do what everyone does. There's always going to be an army of people who tell you that you should be socializing, who tell you you should be finding new hobbies, who tell you you should be, and it's like, don't. If it's not what you want to do, this is such an old-fashioned attitude that you just need to push through it, snap out of it. Basically, that's really what it's saying, is pull yourself together, go and have a laugh with your friends and you'll be fine. And that actually nicely goes right back to what you said. And I don't do stuff now. That's why I'm a step ahead of you in stopping all appointments, is because when I read that book, it's like, and Gary West would say, I really think you'd benefit from seeing your friends. And I'd be like, I don't want to. And I didn't let anyone talk me into it because, I had in black and white in a book in front of me that told me that when I wanted to see my friends or when I wanted to go out, I would know, and not to let anyone else tell me before I was ready. So there we go. Gosh, we've covered a lot of stuff. Covered a lot of ground in that.
I know. So I don't think languish is a bad thing. It's an opportunity.
Yes, but I do think that there should be some acknowledgement in this gap between flourishing and depression, because I would say I am not unhappy, but I don't feel I'm flourishing. Sorry, it's light.
No, that just means you look like, okay.
No, it's gonna have to. Don't understand it. Why is it so pink? I'll just turn it off and it will just get darker and darker and darker.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm not complaining because, but I know that I have felt better because I've had moments of it, just generally in my life, and it's not something I can necessarily put my finger on. But we've been through enough group coaching for you to know that I have ups and downs, but I'm not depressed. There's nothing huge in my life that I need to change. Everything I know is within my control. But I don't feel that I'm full of vitality and happy. There's quite a gap between where I am and where I think, I was going to say where I should be, where I would like to be. In terms of satisfaction and happiness. I have moments of it, but I don't wake up bursting with enthusiasm, which I have done in the past. I think the closest I got to that, when I gave up drinking, And that's what makes me think it's a physical, there's a physical element to this. When I gave up drinking, I would wake up after a couple of days, I'd wake up absolutely bursting with energy. And it's because, you know, you've been poisoning your body for so long, because I used to drink every day. That when I didn't, I would have this noticeable surge of energy. I haven't felt like that for years. I mean, I still don't drink, I don't smoke, and I don't do drugs. Well, more's a pity, but you know, I don't have that enthusiasm and physical energy that I would like to have.
And going back to when you were talking about integration, you know, you need these periods of time to integrate what you've learned, what you've been through. The body can take a different amount of time than the emotional state, or vice versa, to come to terms with wherever it is, and then to determine what it needs to move forward or move in a direction, whatever the direction may be. But I liked that idea of languish can also mean just the need for integration of what you've learned. And I would say too, with the drinking aspect, is that connection to what your body actually needs or wants, because your physical state can help your emotional state and vice versa too. So, you know, alcohol, absolutely, I can see that if you're not eating well, like we were talking, I think before I hit record, about I hadn't been as vegetarian, vegan, I don't know, whatever to call it. I tried to have a plant-based diet, and I wasn't able to maintain that as well with my living with my parents, just because of how they eat. But I know that now that I'm starting to get back into it, just even a week in, I'm feeling much better. My skin's starting to look better, even, you know, 7 days.
You do look rather radiant.
Thank you. Lucas is trying to come in. Hi, buddy. So, yeah, but that's, I don't, yeah. So I think we're getting to a point where we've talked about languish, but in different, in terms that maybe make it more optimistic, understandable, allowable, maybe.
That's a nice word, I like that.
Allowable. I think that's a thing I'm finding, is I feel like we're uncovering areas where we can be certain ways, and that's okay. It's okay to be who you are. It's okay. And we're all here for one another, and hopefully we're getting to that point too. But yeah. Good. Any other thoughts on this, Kate?
No, I think that pretty much, I thought that wrapped up beautifully, Julie.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you for watching this latest episode of Making Light Two Humans Being. I'm Julie Heert, and with me, as always, has been Kate Foggo. Today, we talked about languishing and what the word actually means. And we actually came to a pretty cool place, I think, with it. So I hope it helps you and resonates you as well. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments. So when you have a moment, please leave your comments below, or check us out on Facebook or Instagram. Leave your comments there. You can also share additional show topics you'd like us to discuss. We also have show notes of all the different references we made to different shows below, so check that out as well. We hope to see you next week. In the meantime, take care. We are Making Light Two Humans Being.